Good evening. Welcome to our study tonight. Let's begin within the news. I know that it's not always pleasant, but we definitely need to hear it. This is one under the New World Order. WorldCoin, another step towards global biometric ID. And again, as we share these with you from week to week, it's to alert us all to what's happening around us, because most people have no clue. Again, we're not getting it anywhere in our media, and which is really pretty much propaganda. So I want us to know, because it fills and fulfills prophecy. It's amazing to me because it fulfills what John the Revelator and other prophets had said in the Old Testament. Have you had your eyes scanned by the orb yet? All it takes is just one trip, and once your biometric data is in the database, you will receive some free money. Just listen to these catchwords. And a new digital identity that will you be able to use all over the internet. Doesn't that sound good? Well, hundreds of thousands of people in Europe have already signed up. Those that have created WorldCoin intend for it to be a new identity and financial network, quote unquote, that is owned by everyone on the entire planet. Just listen to the words here. The following comes directly from the official WorldCoin website. Here it is. More than 3 years ago, we founded WorldCoin with the ambition of creating a new identity and financial network owned by everyone. The rollout begins today. We believe WorldCoin could drastically increase economic opportunity, scale a reliable solution for distinguishing humans from AI online, and enable global democratic processes. Just offering a world ID is not going to motivate a lot of people to embrace this new system. Anybody can start a new thing. So the founders are also offering free money to everyone that signs up where the laws allow for such a thing. Ultimately, the goal is to freely distribute tokens that are able to buy and sell to all 8 billion people on planet Earth. You heard me right. It's as a form of universal basic income. It's called UBI. You'll hear about that probably more and more as we go along. But because of the rise of AI, it'll make it tricky to figure out who is human and who's a digital fake. That's pretty scary. WorldCoin first needs to create a system that lets people, all people, across the globe, prove that they're in fact human beings. Do you ever go on a site and they say, I'm not a robot? That's what this thing is about. But if you want your free money, you have to visit the orb. After visiting the orb, a biometric verification device, you'll receive a world ID. As the global distribution of orbs is ramping up, you can find the closest one and book time to be verified with World App and at worldcoin.org. They actually said this on their website. WorldCoin, this is what they said. WorldCoin is an attempt at global scale alignment. The journey will be challenging, and now listen to this part, and the outcome is uncertain. But finding new ways to broadly share the coming technological prosperity is a critical challenge of our time, and they said, we hope you'll join us. Now, I don't know about you, but I never plan to visit the orb, and there's no way that I'm ever going to allow these freaks to scan my eyeballs. It's a very serious threat. The guy heading up this project is also the CEO of a company that brought us ChatGPT, Sam Altman, the most central player in the development of AI. Altman suspects that the world will change forever if or when AI becomes so advanced that it achieves AGI, that's artificial general intelligence, meaning it'll pass the superiority and the brain thinking of humans. Sam Altman is certainly a force to be reckoned with, and now he's absolutely determined to get as many people into this new system as he possibly can. I know what you're saying, Pastor Mark, that's fine, but nobody's signing up for that. Really? In Spain, they've already had 150,000 participants, 20,000 per day. In Portugal, they have 120,000 participants. And in all, some 2 million biometric credentials have already been generated by WorldCoin. It is quite interesting that Europeans are embracing WorldCoin enthusiastically. So I hope that you're ready for what is coming, because our world is starting to change at a pace that is absolutely breathtaking. And global identification is on its way to fulfilling Revelation chapter 13. Are you getting this in your news? No. And I don't want to downplay anyone. Are you getting it in your church? Probably not. You will get it here, because I want you to know this is something that's not convenient. Don't go for somebody to give you free money just to scan your eyeballs. There's a whole lot more. There's no such thing as free money. You're going to pay somewhere down the line. Let me go a little bit further and give you another one. And that, by the way, that's the image for WorldCoin. I didn't give it to you yet. And here's another one. This is DSA, Digital Service Act. Digital Service Act, a framework to gain global control of the internet. Have you noticed something that's a thread through all these articles? Global this and global that. It's exactly what John the Revelator talked about. Something that was one world, one worldwide. And that's what we're seeing. Well, I've never seen this in the news before the last couple of years, but now it's here. Frameworks for control are being set up all over the world. FedNow, I told you about them, a framework for ending financial freedom and privacy as we know it. In Europe, again, it will shortly begin enforcing its Digital Service Acts, which will put in framework for intense control of all online speech. When people see current systems failing, they're more likely to be open to bigger changes. When FedNow was announced in March, it came on the heels of multiple large bank failures. Likewise, many people now recognize that the worldwide response to COVID was a total fiasco. The WHO is trying to use this as an excuse to centralize control. Europeans may lose their ability to even complain about current events. The DSA, Digital Service Act, also contains provisions for combating disinformation, which means that it can be used to police online speech. And who determines what's disinformation? Is this the first we've heard of something like this? Absolutely not. This isn't much of a stretch. France has already threatened to kick out Twitter. A voluntary agreement had been put into place between big tech and the European Commission to help the largest tech companies comply with the Digital Service Act's new obligations. Twitter had been on board at first, then backed out due to Elon Musk's concern regarding free speech. He said, if we do this, you lose your free speech. Upon Twitter's withdrawal, France's digital minister, Jean-Noël Barrot, publicly stated, quote, Twitter, if it repeatedly doesn't follow our rules, will be banned from the EU. Imagine. He also posted on Twitter, fighting disinformation will be illegal. Goodbye to free speech. EU has already shown itself willing to shut down huge media outlets. In the same way, the Fed now is putting its framework for CBDCs. In the same way that the WHO is setting up a framework for worldwide health programs. The Digital Service Act is putting in a framework for widespread internet control within Europe. Now think about it. They want to control your finances. The Fed now. They want to control your money, which is not just the Fed now, but then a digital coin, a cryptocurrency by FedNow. And then they also want to control your health through the WHO and registering with them. And now Digital Service Act. You're seeing it all pull together, all the data come together in one spot. It's easy to feel overwhelmed at the size and the breadth of freedom restriction frameworks being put into place. Megalomaniacs have always dreamt of world domination. The only difference now is that our technology and global interconnection in this have made one world government a real possibility. The next, and I'm giving you my opinion, the next worldwide megalomaniac will be Antichrist. And he will make Hitler look like a choir boy as he controls populations through all these framework systems. In a recent interview with Redacted, former British parliamentary candidate Jim Ferguson had some interesting thoughts on how to think of ourselves in facing down this power man behemoth of wantable world governors. He said that resistance could take place at three levels: strategic, tactical, and operational. Strategic level would be international, consisting of people getting together in agreement to work towards national sovereignty for individual countries all over the globe. The tactical level would be regional, addressing specific issues. This would consist of groups like the various Freedom Convoys or the Dutch Farmers Defence Force. And finally, at the operational level, this could be something you and your family do together. You need direction. Look at what the World Economic Forum wants us to do, and then run the opposite way. Henry Kissinger said a long time ago, who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world. But listen, John the Revelator beat him to that a whole lot almost 2,000 years ago. If you want to take back some of your control in your life, perhaps you would start with your own food supply. I'm going to give you a little bit of instruction. Some people may think I'm crazy, but just listen. Most people can produce at least something, and producing one thing often leads to the development of many other skills. For many people, some productive tomato plants in their suburban backyards, just a small, leads to learning how to can those, which leads to them buying in bulk from farmers markets, which leads to meet like-minded people, and it just keeps going on. So once you start doing something truly productive, other pursuits will eventually follow. Can you always plan this all out? Of course not. The important thing is to start, be willing to see where your journey toward increasing independence takes you. to develop our own set of frameworks for resistance. That's right, we need to resist. Now again, I'm talking to you and to the world, really. A lot of people listen to this broadcast. I'm talking to them, and it seems like that's so far down the line. It's not. It's here. As well as this is. If we look at the economy, and I've been telling you this for a while, this article came out this week. New BRICS currency backed by gold to end global dominance of the US dollar. I've told you before, the US dollar is the world economic currency. It is the exchange rate of the world. If you want to buy oil and you're China, you have to purchase it in US dollars. So since World War II, we've been the dominant currency in the world. That is starting to change drastically. Is the global dominance of the US dollar in danger? In recent weeks, there has been lots of speculation about the introduction of a new BRICS currency that would be backed by gold. BRICS, a decision to introduce a new BRICS currency that would be backed by gold would be made prior to the upcoming summit in Johannesburg. That's happening on August 24th, by the way. From their website, BRICS is set to introduce a new currency backed by gold, in contrast to the credit-backed US dollar. Our dollar is backed by nothing. They took us off the gold standard years ago. You can't take a dollar and exchange it for gold, but this BRICS currency you would be able to. With the decision coming a month ahead of the bloc summit in Johannesburg. With the growing initiative, more and more countries are lining up to join the group. In the aftermath of that report, many prominent voices were warning that the US dollar was in big trouble, and it is. August 22nd, 2023 in Johannesburg, South Africa, BRICS nations announced gold-backed crypto. US dollar will die. Kioski tweeted last week. Kioski is a prominent economist. He says trillions of US dollars will rush home. Inflation will go through the roof. One of the top executives of the New Development Bank publicly admitted that the creation of the new BRICS currency is a medium to long-term ambition. But he also confirmed that such a currency will not be introduced right now. This can happen slowly. While the members of BRICS, and by the way, if you don't know who that is, it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are pushing to conduct more trade between each other in local currencies, they aren't ready to challenge the global dominance of the dollar just yet, but it is coming. And that doesn't mean that the really big things aren't happening right now. In addition to the core BRIC nations, Bangladesh, United Arab Emirates, Uruguay are apparently getting very, very close to joining the New Development Bank. And here's the real shocker. Saudi Arabia can also join. If that happens, we're in deep trouble. If we wake up and Saudi Arabia joins the BRICS alliance, the world will be a different world in a meaningful and significant way. And that would probably greatly accelerate the transition to trading Middle Eastern oil and currencies other than the US dollar. BRICS is going to continue to accumulate more power and more influence. Over 40 different nations now have indicated an interest in joining the bloc of only 5 nations. South Africa has invited 69 global leaders to attend the BRICS summit, demonstrating the bloc's interest in increasing its global influence. When BRICS was formed in 2009, many Western leaders didn't take it very seriously, but now it's become a powerhouse. They really do intend to move away from using the US dollar. Again, it will take time, but the dominance of the US dollar in global trade is definitely starting to erode. The US dollar will never again be as dominant as it once was, and a great economic chaos is ahead of us. Now, if you don't understand the economics of that, let me put it real simply. All of the countries in the world, and when I say all, I mean all of the major countries in the world, I should say that way, buy US dollars because the exchange rate in the world is US dollars. You can't buy oil, as I said, unless you have US dollars. When that collapses, America collapses economically. Here's my take. This is yet another indicator of America's demise. Remember, America is not referenced either directly or indirectly in Revelation and in the last days. What happens to her? Maybe she's one of the frog nations of Revelation 16 that's been defeated and gathers together in Armageddon. I don't know, but I know this. America, if it doesn't change, is on a collision course with destruction. And I hate to be a harbinger of bad news, but it is. Let me go. How many of you believe that the Lord's going to take us out before that? Everybody's raising their hands. I am too. All right. 10 signs that the mainstream media is not telling you the truth about our economy. If you believe the corporate media, the U.S. economy is doing absolutely great as we start to roll through the second half of 2023. Even though inflation is out of control, the commercial real estate market is on a free fall, corporate bankruptcies are surging, and large businesses all over America are conducting massive layoffs, we're being told that everything's just peachy. For example, the following comes from a recent NPR article entitled "What Recession?" It's a summer of splurging, profits, and girl power. The numbers are in and things look surprisingly rosy for the U.S. economy, they said. The Federal Reserve is still cautious, but big brands including Coca-Cola, Hilton, and Visa are singing praises to shoppers, seemingly undeterred by companies raising prices. What's more, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, and Barbie are enticing people to part with their money, boistering local businesses. Unfortunately, that's just not true. Here's 10 signs that the mainstream media is not telling you the truth about the economy. Number one, when the economy is doing well, there's a tremendous demand for trucking. When the economy is tanking, trucking companies often get into serious trouble. Well, one of our oldest companies and largest trucking businesses is literally on the brink of collapse. Yellow, one of the largest and oldest trucking business in America, is going to file bankruptcy this week and may collapse within days, leaving 30,000 workers without jobs. This is nearly a 100-year-old company. It's known for its competitive pricing and has more than 12,000 trucks shipping freight across the U.S. for brands including Walmart and Home Depot. Number two, you can add Anheuser-Busch to the rapidly growing list of large companies that are conducting mass layoffs. I personally am really thankful for this one. The parent company of Bud Light, it's going to lay off 1,000 employees, many of them in corporate positions, as it seeks to recover from the fallout over a stupid campaign that involved a trans influencer. Number three, the number of large corporate debt defaults so far this year has already exceeded the grand total for the entire year of 2022. 55 American-based companies defaulted on their loans in the first half of 23. That is a 53% increase from the total amount that did it last year. Number four, the cost of living continues to soar. Vehicle repair costs, just one of them, have risen nearly 30% just to repair a vehicle over the past 12 months. Five, more than 750,000 households in the state of California are behind on their rent. Now it appears that a tsunami of mass evictions is coming. 768,000 households are behind in rent in the Golden State, with total deaths reaching more than $5 billion. It will put approximately 721,000 children at risk of eviction, according to the National Equity Atlas. Residents of Los Angeles City are facing a deadline of August 1st to repay all rental debt accrued between March 2020 and September 2021. With that, from October 2021 to January 31st, 2023, due by February 2024. Six, and here's another interesting one for you. Makes you wonder where our government, what our world, where our heads are at. Electronic vehicles were to be the wave of the future, but Ford Motors recently announced it's projected to lose a whopping $4.5 billion from electrical vehicles, EVs, this year. Ford Model E has lost $1.8 billion so far this year, according to Fortune 500. Number seven, a yield curve inversion normally means that a recession is coming. Right now, the yield curve is the most inverted that it's been in more than 40 years. What's a yield curve? It's the gap between 10-year Treasury notes of the America and the 3-month Treasury. When that gap gets bigger and bigger, you know you're in trouble. It's the largest it's ever been in 40 years. Number eight, just like we saw in 2008, home foreclosures are starting to surge. 186,000 foreclosures have been filed in the first 6 months of this year. The trend is being driven by an uncertain housing market and soaring mortgage rates. Number nine, we are in the early stages of the worst commercial real estate crisis in United States history, and now one expert is comparing it to a Category 5 hurricane. Big problem is rapidly declining office and retail renting and purchasing space in thousands of downtown areas across the United States. Number 10, the number of announced job cuts in the United States during the first half of this year was 224% higher than the number of announced job cuts during the first half of last year. Employers have announced 460,000 cuts so far this year, a 244% increase from last year. Considering all the facts that I just shared with you, how in the world can anyone possibly claim the United States economy is heading in the right direction? Biden isn't only inept, my words, he is a habitual liar. It just doesn't make any sense. We are sinking as a nation, morally, economically, and spiritually. Of course, those that work for the mainstream media can write anything they want. That doesn't mean we have to believe them. We live in a time of great deception, and it's only going to get worse. If you think that things are bad now, just wait till we get to this time next year. I hope the Lord comes back. With the presidential election looming, the mainstream media will be desperate to portray the Biden administration in a good light. They are right now, and they'll continue to do that. But in my opinion, no amount of spin can change the truth. The U.S. economy really is in big trouble, and very dark storm clouds are gathering on the horizon. Let me go a little further for you. Talk to you about religion. Polls shows an increase in unbelief and uncertainty, and it's not surprising. Since 2001, Gallup has polled Americans on their belief in 5 prominent religious entities: God, angels, heaven, hell, and the devil. After their 5th poll, which took place in May of this year, Americans seem to be straying further from belief in religious entities, and thus closer to an uncertainty or even complete unbelief. According to the poll, 74% of Americans believe in God, 69% in angels. I don't know how you believe in God and not angels. 67% in heaven. I don't know, where is God? And 59% in hell, and only 57% in the devil. When compared with the initial survey conducted in 2021, almost every category is down almost 20 points. In addition to this information, 2023 study by George Barna, done by George Barna in the Cultural Research Center of Arizona Christian University, found that only 4% of Americans, only 4%, hold a biblical worldview. Only 4%. Clearly, we're living in a time of depravity. Americans are deprived of truth while consistently being fed lies. Even from a secular worldview, the leftist agenda has been so loud that even those who are once neutral are now being swayed by our culture. The mere amplitude of their cries is enough to shove the indifference onto one side of inclusivity and acceptance, even if solely out of fear of being hated or rejected. That's what most Americans do. They don't want to lose their job. They don't want to lose their position in Hollywood. They don't want to lose their position in the world. So they accept this junk. My body, my voice, they scream. My body, my choice, they scream. Gender and sexuality are subjective, they proclaim. If you aren't forced, then you're against us and worthy of being canceled, they threaten. The list goes on and on for how these people tantalize those who disagree with them. Let me tell you straight out, I totally disagree with them. I don't care what they do. I totally disagree with them. To exasperate the matter, a sense of purposelessness plagues the unbeliever and often tempts the one who does believe. The Gallup poll only affirms this notion. David Clausen, director of Family Research Council Center for Biblical Worldview, put it this way: a fragmented worldview leads to massive confusion. And this confusion is only becoming more prominent. So what are you supposed to do as Christians? Well, he gives us a couple ideas. He said, we must remember we live in a post-Christian world and not to take basic Christian doctrine for granted. Even a lot of Christians, he says, probably don't do well on these polls. Why is that? Because people are not reading their Bibles and pastors are not giving theological sermons. They're not getting the truth. Clausen phrased it, Christians need to redouble their efforts in New Testament Discipleship 101, which he concluded is to preach the Word, study the Bible, engage in Christian fellowship, and strive to strengthen our faith in and out of church. Man, it's powerful stuff. Let me go a little further. Australian Christians warn censorship is coming with a new disinformation bill. It's called the Combating Misinformation and Disinformation Plan, Bill 2023, and it's in the House of the Senate in Australia right now. The plan would, for example, ban criticism of LGBT ideology, including transgender procedures that mutilate a child's body. Presented as a measure to protect Australians from false, misleading, or deceptive information, or from information intended to cause serious harm, the bill actually is a dangerous attempt to gain control and, again, limit our speech. Now it goes without saying that as Christians, we don't hate those with alternative views, but we believe that disagreeing and loving can coexist. In fact, at times, it's loving to disagree. However, as we've seen time and time again in our world, there are strong elements of our culture who label our disagreement or us pointing out these issues we have with gender theory or abortion as hate and harmful. Welcome to the jungle. The plan is for the government to define what it refuses to tolerate. It could order digital platforms to keep records of offenses. If they don't respond as the government wants, they can be fined. So out of fear of penalty, digital platforms will play it safe. You will be censored. This is not democracy. Listen to this. For social platforms that won't comply, fines are suspected to range up to $6.8 million. Oddly, the bill claims it would have no role in determining truthfulness. What a joke that is. Let's go a little bit further and give you a little bit more junk. Moral decree. You may have not heard of this man, but this is Biden monkeypox advisor accused of being Satanist by right-wing critics. His name is Dr. Dmitry Daskalakis, and he speaks at the daily press briefing at the White House on September 7, 2022. He's been put over monkeypox, which is, by the way, really spreading. Let me tell you about this guy. A lot of people are calling him a Satanist. Why? Well, he has a pentagram, a huge one, huge tattoo pentagram on his chest. And by the way, did a little bit more research, just in case you know. He used to go to church and stopped that a while ago. But before he did, he had tattooed on his stomach a cross. So imagine this guy when he takes his shirt off. There's a pentagram on his chest and a cross on his stomach. Monkeypox was declared by the World Health Organization as a public health emergency of international concern. It spread through direct contact with infectious rash or body fluids. It also is transmitted through face-to-face contact, touching contaminated surfaces, and being in contact with infected animals. So we have a Satanist over our monkeypox viruses. Daskalakis was blasted online by some conservatives who shared pictures of his tattoos and his outfits outside of work. The pentagram is proudly displayed in his promotional photos for a CDC appointment. It's ubiquitous on his social media. Dimitri has pentagram tattoos, so it's a fair question. Did Joe Biden appoint a Satanist? Well, I think the answer is yes. So I just don't want to be critical, but I'm going to give you my acronym for Joe Biden. Joe, just, openly evil. Biden, busy in devil's evil network. That's my acronym for Joe Biden. You can quote it, but make sure you credit me when you quote it. I'm just kidding. But I'm not quitting on the quote. All right, here it goes. Scary. 1 in 6 Democrats believe violence is justified to restore abortion. This article goes on and says that the number of terrorism has doubled, terroristic attacks by the leftists to restore abortion rights. It's doubled from 8% to 16% just from January. Support for violence against Congress began to rise after Republicans controlled the House of Representatives. The left is engaged in more than theoretical support for abortion-based violence. There's been at least 67 attacks against pro-life pregnancy resource centers since the still unsolved leak of the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision last May. Worse yet, the Department of Homeland Security has warned that churches face an elevated threat of violence until at least 2024 election, 15 months from now, due to their stance on socio-political issues. Not due to the leftist hatred of Christians, no, to the church's stance. Look, I said it before, and I'll say it again in this way. If you're a Democratic Christian, your party has left you. They hate your God, and they hate your convictions. Their leftist views have inched out once sensible Democrats, and it's not getting any better. And you have a choice, God or the Democratic Party. You're either for him or you're against him. Let me go on. How to use Snapchat My AI. Snapchat My AI gives advice to kids about gender confusion. It's attractive, easily accessible, and easily understood. It's also nearly impossible to remove from this popular social media app. And it's primed to deliver dangerous gender ideology narratives to vulnerable children. Meet Snapchat's latest feature, which goes by the catchy name My AI, My Artificial Intelligence. You can ask it anything about gender equality. They will tell you their answers, and their answers are all based on LGBTQ doctrine. They'll tell you where to go to get operations, and they'll tell you what to do if you feel like you're a boy trapped in a girl's body, or vice versa. And their solutions are not necessarily anything that's wholesome. It's all the LGBTQ ideology. And by the way, the troubling thing about this is 48% of Snapchat users are between the ages of 15 and 25. And this is one that automatically appears on your Snapchat. My AI clearly endorses social transition, encouraging different clothing, new pronouns, new haircuts. Upon asking it, it offers to find gender-affirming care clinics near you. Also, it validates Planned Parenthood as a provider of hormone therapy to children and directs people to those sites. Snapchat My AI escalates the level to harm to children from social media platforms. In addition, the addition of My AI gives your child unlimited access to engage technology in its trendiest form, Remove the need to approach role models with critical questions or seek honest, person-to-person social interactions with people who truly care about them, people who care enough to tell them the truth. If you haven't limited your child's internet use so far, it's high time you do. Let's go again. LGBTQ. Arizona's opening an LGBTQ middle school with tuition paid for by tax dollars. You heard me, right? Those attending school are able to pay for their tuition using taxpayer-funded vouchers provided through a state program. Davenport, which is the one over this, said the affirming environment is going to be a key to these kids' mental health, educational advancement, which ironically is anything but the case. The school is for children ranging from ages 11 to 14. To say that they're safe is ridiculous. Children are far too young and vulnerable for any such school to help their mental health. Again, it's centered on LGBT ideology, and it's a breeding ground for confused, depressed, anxious, and lost individuals. Moreover, a school centered on LGBT ideology is run by confused, depressed, anxious, and lost individuals. So now we've arrived at a point in human history where instead of protecting children from early sexualization and exploitation, we use public monies to create an environment for children based on a claimed sexual identity. If you don't think the enemy is running wild in our world, then you're vastly mistaken. Christians need to pray for local and elected officials who have the authority to approve or disapprove schools that are explicitly teaching leftist ideology and allowing taxpayers to be the source of the funding. This school, brazenly leading children astray, to me is disheartening to say the least. But it is even more reason to pray, and to pray without ceasing. And thank God we still use the standard Lord's Prayer. Now the Lord's Prayer is gender biased. According to a high-ranking Church of England official, Jesus' sample prayer, commonly called the Lord's Prayer, is dangerously biased towards patriarchy. Quoted the Archbishop of York when it's reported that the opening words of the Lord's Prayer, he said it, recited by Christians all over the world for 2,000 years, he says may be problematic because of their patriarchal association. The Archbishop's comment reflects increasing moral confusion in that organization and beyond. Those who claim to lead others in Christ's name should understand the foundational principles of the Bible, but many religious leaders today are increasingly influenced by the moral degradation of our society. The Bible clearly states that God is a Father, and Jesus punctuated that fact when he taught his disciples to pray. Christ did not teach us to pray to a great deity or to some intentionally vague sense of God or a woman God. Rather, he taught us explicitly to pray for our Father who art in heaven. Although this clear reference to a father figure is uncomfortable to a growing number of people in Western society, it is a clear Bible teaching, and it relates God's plan to build a family. He desires children, godly offspring. God is the Father, Jesus Christ is the Son, and the groom who will one day marry his bride, the church. A clear family structure is laid out all over the pages of the Bible, and that family structure has its highest authority as God the Father, the head of the family. Ephesians chapter 3, verse 14. The Bible warns about those who profess to be wise and of God, yet have become fools. Romans 1:22. We're also warned in Scripture that if those who claim to be God but speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. Isaiah 8:20. Let me give you a couple more tonight. This one is, does human life matter? It's my life and I can do what I want with it. That was a song in the 60s. Now it's become a common mantra in Western society. In recent years, the mantra has taken on a grave twist. With the legalization of euthanasia, what some have called mercy killing, people are increasingly allowed to commit legal suicide with the help of their doctor. And in some countries, the reasons legally allowed to justify this seems increasingly trivial. 2002, the Netherlands became the first nation in the world to allow doctors to kill patients who desired suicide as long as the patient satisfied certain strict conditions. But those conditions have become increasingly loose and fuzzy, allowing suicide by individuals with autism or intellectual disabilities merely because they said they could not lead normal lives. And in 2020, the Dutch government moved to allow euthanizing children under the age of 12 with terminal illnesses. You have to ask yourself, just what is the primary goal here? Benefiting the suffering child? Benefiting the suffering parents? Or reducing the medical burden on society? Mankind has a strong tendency towards playing God. Yet the Bible makes it clear that God, not a man, is the life giver. He alone has the power and authority to give and to take life. When human beings take the life of another human being, it's called murder, something God strictly forbids. Watching someone suffer is very difficult, but it never warrants taking God's prerogatives into our own hands. Suffering reminds us that we do not live in God's world. We live in a world currently ruled by the god of this age, Satan. However, there is a world coming in which suffering will cease, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, no sorrow, no crying. That is the world we seek, not the panacea provided by assisted suicide. But that world requires the return of Jesus Christ to make it a reality. And the more I read, the more I continue to study in the news, the things happening in the world, the more I know that that reality is going to come quick. Now, I don't know what this means. I know that the stars are for signs, seasons, and times. This one's definitely getting my attention. Double supermoons and the most popular meteor shower of the year coming in August. On the night of Tuesday, August 1st, a supermoon rose over the earth. Matter of fact, I got pictures from the internet from friends that are at the beach showing me the sunsets, which is definitely a product of it. The moon will be 99% illuminated. It never happens that way to planet Earth. A supermoon is when the moon reaches its peak of illumination at a time that coincides with its closest approach to Earth, this time just over 220,000 miles from the surface of our planet. It's called perigee. Also, it's called the sturgeon moon, after prolific fish species in North America. Other Native American tribes use names associated with corn, rice, or you may have heard this one, a harvest moon. It'll be the first of 2 full moons in August, with the second one appearing on the 30th. So if you missed the first one, next one coming on the 30th. It's called the blue moon, and it'll be the biggest full moon of the year, of the entire year. One out of the northeastern sky, then on August 13th, comes the Perseid meteor shower, where nearly 150 meteors at night will bombard the Earth, passing through a stream of debris led by the comet 109P Swift-Tuttle. It's actually the Perseids that it goes through, portion of the observation in the northern hemisphere, and it happens in warm weather. August 13th will be a near moonless night, meaning much less native light pollution will be there in the sky, and you will be able to spot this meteor shower. Lastly, in August, there are 3 great chances to see Saturn with the aid of binoculars and pre-dawn hours when it comes within 2 degrees 15 seconds of the moon. At this time, it will be visible with a naked eye, but with binoculars, you can see its rings. So those are all for signs and seasons, and somebody's going to ask me, what does it mean? Well, I can do research and tell you what I feel it means, but let me tell you this. Watch Israel on those days. Watch what's happening in Israel. Many, many times, these signs in the sky have something to do with Israel. That's in the news for tonight. I pray that you are continuing to follow in the news for not to give you goosebumps. In the news should make you understand that you're very, very close. And the more I see it, the closer I know we are.